Want to pick up your first Airbnb co-host property that will generate $75,862.94, then this video is for you, because that's exactly what I did on my first co-host property. And I'm going to show you the 6 steps so you can do the same. So the biggest mistake is co-hosting any property, listing it, and just hoping for bookings. It's not about hoping for bookings. It's about strategy. It's about optimization, and it's about execution. So if you're starting out, this can be helpful, or if you're looking to scale and grow your co-hosting business, this can be beneficial for you too. Step 1, finding the perfect location. So when you're looking for the right property to co-host, location is everything. Number 1, you want to make sure there is a market demand in the area that you're looking. So there needs to be a market demand. What that means is there needs to be a short-term rental population, and you need to know if there's a demand actually in your market, in your city. So you could be in a vacation rental market, beach, mountain, in a natural state park area, or you could be like myself in a city metro environment, Midwest environment. And so those two locations are different, but you could still find out if there's a demand. The way we do it is we go on AirDNA, we go on Airbnb, we use these two platforms, and then we research, is there actually a demand? We look at occupancy, we look at the average daily rate, and we're going to look at revenues, okay? That's going to be another deep dive on another video as far as how to deep dive the market research, but you want to know if there's a demand in general. So hopefully there is. Step 2 is, okay, what location of that city is the property in? In this example, in the property that I'm talking about, there is my property is in a metro market, city market. And so I like this property initially because it was minutes from the downtown area, right? That's where there's a hub of people come to. That's where there's a lot of travelers. There's a lot of things going on downtown. There's events. It's minutes away from a museum. It's minutes away from a convention center. And so it's in this neighborhood that is literally 2 to 3 minutes from the main attractions of that city. So look at your city and figure out what parts. I like to map out parts of the metro market that you're in, or the market that you're in, and find out, okay, this is a good area. This is a good area. This is a good, circle the map. And so you'll know when you're looking at properties, what's a good area and what's a good location. Okay. So that's number 1, is getting the location down, convenience, close to things, less of a drive. People don't want to drive far away. They don't want to go to the city, travel, fly in, and then have a 40-minute, 45-minute drive to do most things, right? So you want to know that. And then you also want to know, you also want to look at capacity. So once you have a property, then you want to know, okay, how many people can it sleep? Traditionally, the more people the place can sleep, the more opportunity you're going to have, 1, for visibility, but 2, for increasing the nightly rate and, booking bigger parties that are going to eventually pay more. Traditionally, a bigger party will pay more based on your pricing. So if you can sleep anywhere from 8 to 12 people in a 3 to 4 bedroom house, you're going to have bigger groups, bigger parties. These are groups, these are families, these are workers, these are people that don't want to go buy 3 to 4 hotel rooms. They'll rather rent space in your property. Okay, so that's important. And again, this is not an end all be all, but just because you have a lot of beds doesn't mean it's going to equal a lot of revenue, right? That's just something you want to look at. Okay, so I like 4 to 6 beds. I like 3 to 5 bedrooms. So now that we have the location down, step 2 is optimizing the property. Right? A high revenue Airbnb has to be a high converting Airbnb short-term rental. To do that, we have to optimize the listing, optimize the property. Okay, so step 1 in optimizing a property is going to be design. We have to design the property in a way, this is super important. So as a co-host, you got to make sure the property is designed. You're working with a property owner, okay? And you want to communicate with the property owner about the market. This is in your market research. This is what I'm seeing. These are the type of homes that are performing. Here's how they're designed. Here's how they look. Okay, so now you guys can work together as far as how do you stand out. It needs to be a standout, creative design, I'm not saying that you need to go all out and do all these things, but the days of just throwing anything together are over. It needs to flow. It needs to be cohesive. It needs to stand out. It needs to grab people's attention so people are going to want to stay there. Number 2 is the photos. Optimize the photos. I recommend professional photos. Unless you're able to take professional photos yourself and you have experience in that, I would recommend a professional photographer that you can work with and tell them what photos you want so that we can list these photos in the correct order. Super important, because when you're optimizing the listing, you have a design piece that stands out, and then the order of the photos is telling a story. As people are looking at your listing, they're getting excited. They're like, this is nice. They can kind of feel how they're going to feel in the listing, and then they start to book. Okay. So photos are super important. Listing titles important. Description is important. These all things correlate with the Airbnb algorithm, because our goal here is design, titles, listing, descriptions, photo order. We're trying to get in the algorithm so we can have visibility. The more visibility, the more people see your listing, the more revenue and more bookings you're going to get. Okay. So after titles and descriptions, then we have dynamic pricing. Dynamic pricing, this is pricing based off of supply and demand, right? I do not recommend smart pricing if you're Airbnb. If you think you're going to just throw out and put the listing on and then have one price and set it, you're making a mistake. I've learned this. We need to understand pricing. We need to understand high demand days, right? We need to understand low demand days. Weekend prices are different than weekday prices. Peak season prices are different than slow season prices. Okay, so you want to understand these formats as far as what's your market price, then what is your above market price that you're willing to sell it for, what's your low market price that you're willing to sell it for. You want to understand these prices, these tiers, and then understand what your competition is doing. So this is dynamic pricing. The last thing is multi-platform bookings, meaning if we're only relying on Airbnb, then we only have one platform. We can increase more revenue on the property that I manage that does over 75,000. We get a percentage of bookings from other platforms such as VRBO and Booking.com. So you want to be diverse with your platforms. You want to be diverse with having bookings from multiple platforms. Now this is value that you're adding as a co-host. All right, step three into a high performing Airbnb property is going to be your 5-star experience, creating a 5-star experience. The difference between a high revenue property and a mediocre revenue property is the guest experience. Okay. And this is the hospitality business. Guys, this is not, you talk to a lot of investors, you talk to a lot of real estate agents. This is not real estate. It's a form of real estate because you're in a property, but this is not the real estate business. This is a hospitality business. Okay. We're here to be hospitable. We're here to serve guests. So if you can create a guest experience, you're going to have increased revenue because they are the core reason that people are going to come back, that people are going to show up, that you're going to have a good word of mouth in the area. You got to create a good guest experience. So how do we do that? Number one is going to be check-in, a seamless process. Okay. I like to use keypads. You can use lock boxes. A seamless self check-in process is key. So people aren't frustrated when they're checking in. They want clear details, clear instructions. They don't want to go searching for your property, searching for your front door. They need to know these things. Trust me. Okay. So number 2 is cleanliness, cleaning turnovers. Huge. This is huge. You got to be able to clean the space and clean it again and clean it again. You got to have people in place. Don't get a random cleaner that you haven't trained, that hasn't done this before. You need to have cleaners that you trust, that either you hired or you outsourced from a company, and they're trained and they know exactly what to do. So cleaning turnover, because they are your eyes and ears, because how you clean a property equals how accurate the property is, and this accounts to how they're going to feel when they walk into your property. So you got to clean it. And then another part of your 5-star experience, if you can clean the property, and then your guest communication. People don't want to message you and it takes 2 hours for you to respond. You got to respond quickly, communicate. I like to set up automated messages so the core flow of these messages gives the core details, the check-in messages, the welcome messages, right? The checking, check in on them, see if they need anything, the checkout process. These are the messages that I send out on top of 20, I try to do at least 8 to 12 hour day, of customer service support. So we have somebody, our team member on call to answer questions. Things are going to arise, things are going to happen. If you've been in this business, things are going to happen. You got to have support. So guest communication. The other thing is going to be personal touches, right? This is hospitality. This is not real estate. This is hospitality. So if you go to the Holiday Inn, you go to the Marriott, you're choosing that hotel because you're going to have hospitality. You're going to have service. They have a lot of amenities. You know what you're going to get. Okay. So as hosts, as co-hosts, we have to, on a personal level, create a personal experience. I like to do digital guides so they get everything they need as far as recommendations, things to do in the area. You could do handwritten notes, you could do welcome baskets, you can get creative and whatever personal touch you want. Just make sure it's something that you can consistently do. Step 4 is leveraging direct bookings, outsourcing other avenues to get bookings. Okay. And so another way to increase revenue, and we started this not in the beginning, but we just started this later into the year, is we do events. Okay, so I created a website, I have a direct booking website, and so we collect emails based on our digital guide. We use TouchStay, so we'll collect emails, we'll collect phone numbers, and this is the way so we can work with repeat guests. Okay, so you can work with repeat guests. And so you have and you can work with guests that want to do events, guests that guests that you find on social media when you're marketing. Direct bookings can be huge. Even a 10 to 15% revenue from events and direct bookings can be huge to your total year revenue. So what I mean by events, if you have a space where there's a lot of parties, birthday parties, baby showers. Some people like to come in and shoot business commercials. Depending on your property, know what your property can do. Get creative, because there are people that will come and use your property for events, just a day shoot. You can list your property on there's a platform called Peerspace where people rent out your property. Maybe they want to get some work done for 4 or 5 hours a day, or they want a group photography session. So events are huge. Direct bookings are huge. We're getting started, and this is not a huge part of my business, but this is at least 10% of our revenue last year. So this can help increase your revenue, and it can be valuable in your conversations with property owners as a co-host. Step 5 is going to be problem solving. Problem solving in this business is going to be huge. If you've been in customer service and hospitality, If you've been in the hotel industry, but you got to be able to problem solve. So problem solve, there are going to be certain problems that come up all the time, okay? And you want to kind of eliminate. So our job is to think of, we're in a preventative state, and we're trying to think of things that could happen, and then how can we prevent it, right? Because things will happen, but we want to think ahead and be proactive and figure out how we can prevent things from happening. Here's what you need. I'm a firm believer you're going to need a handyman in place. And so you got to have multiple handyman, not just one, because you need a backup. You need handyman for maintenance issues. You can work with the property owner on that as well as a co-host. But if you have a team of handymen, of maintenance people, cleaners, you're going to need multiple cleaners that you can trust, a backup cleaner as well, okay? And then you're going to need at least one, what I call like a runner. And you can use a cleaner that's like a lead runner. This person can run supplies. This person, if it's not yourself, right? If it, depending on your situation, if you're there and you're available and you have you have time, and this is your first property, you can run the supplies to the unit. You can run if you need to get something in an emergency situation. You can do that. If you can't do that, You got to have somebody that you can call that's on call. Maybe have two people that, hey, like, this is what I'm doing. This is what the business I'm starting. Are you open to being on call for certain emergency situations? So that's going to be helpful, because if you can't solve problems, that's going to lead into upset guests. Upset guests is going to lead into potential bad review, and now that can affect your revenue. Okay, so handyman, maintenance people, a runner, somebody on call, a cleaner, and then you got to have guest communication in place. So you have to decide if how many hats you're doing, build your team out, and then make sure that those roles are covered. So if there's a toilet bowl issue, toilet bowl. If there's a toilet bowl issue, if the toilet bowl seat is cracked, if there's a clogged or anything, somebody's locked out, you have to be available or have people that can be available in place to solve these problems. So we are a problem-solving team. So this is step 5. Hopefully this helps. So last but not least, step 6 is, I like to call it innovation. This is thinking outside the box of ways that you can always increase the revenue at the property. And so if you're not always thinking, because year 1, year 2, year 3, things change. The market could change. The demand in your market could change. And so we got to be paying attention to the market. You cannot be a co-host if you're not paying attention to the market. What blind spots are you missing that could put you out of business or increase revenue? So I like to look at unique amenities in the area, meaning like what can we add, or what can we implement that could add a better experience that equates to more income. So that could be something as simple as, just making sure that your reviews are top notch, right? Just doubling down on your customer experience, taking that extra step and making people feel great about their stay. It could be as simple as that, right? What things could you implement? Or is it like amenities that you can add? Hot tubs, grills, fire pits, for example, depending on market, pools, right? Could be a golf cart, depending on your market. These are all ways that you want to be. It could be, we did this in this property that we're talking about, the one that did 75,000 plus. We added a bed. It was a 3-bedroom, but we looked at the market. I looked at the data, and we added a bed. Now we turned a 3-bedroom into a 4-bedroom, then increased revenue, right? That's because I'm thinking of ways to create revenue. I'm thinking of ways to be able to, create a better experience. So you got to be thinking about that. You definitely want to be thinking about what you can add. You definitely want to be thinking about how your systems are. How well can you run a team? How's your check-in systems? How's your checkout systems? Your pricing systems? Your guest communication systems? So making sure your systems are in place. And then how can we add more revenue? Because you can't get stagnant. It could be something as simple as painting a wall, changing some designs, changing the bedding, retaking the photos. Tweaking these things can equate to more revenue, and it's super, super beneficial, and it adds value to you as a co-host. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully you guys put this together. These are the 6 steps that allowed me to manage and generate over $75,000 on a 4-bedroom property in the Midwest metro area. Depending on your area, it could be different. But if you like this video, like and subscribe. If you want to see more videos like this to help you get your first Airbnb co-host property, hit the like button and comment the word co-host below.